Fun angle. We are live here at MSP GeekCon. How are you doing this morning?
I'm a bit tired.
I know.
I might have stayed up past my bedtime by 4 last night, but
woo! Okay, yeah.
I was up till 2.
I was gonna say you stayed up till 4. Good for you.
Probably tonight.
I was on my best behavior. I went to bed early. I just got done with the keynote. That's why we're a little bit late here. For everybody that is live and joining us on stream, please say hello. We are live here at MSP GeekCon in beautiful Orlando. It is a wonderful day. It is far too hot to walk out there.
That's not true.
Isn't it like 91 today?
That's lovely.
That is not lovely. And maybe in your shirt, that is a very fun. Tell me about this shirt right now.
So this is Bear in a Goots costume. And we have pins as well. And I think it's so adorable. And all of us at Auvik are wearing it, which I'm so thrilled about. But only some of us are doing the white pants. They did not get the memo that it's like the day at the beach, but whatever.
I like it. The fact that you managed to get Steve to wear it makes my heart full because I know Steve did not want to wear it.
He was so excited, actually.
Was he?
Yeah.
All right. I love it.
And Steve being excited is like, yeah, it's not hit and miss.
You bottle that up. I hope Steve hears this. He probably won't, but if he does, I love you, Steve. You are my favorite person over at Auvik. It's been good seeing you in the shirt. Well, we are live here for a reason and for a purpose. We are sitting here at GeekCon, which is a conference put together by an amazing community that you've been part of for a while. And so for the audience, because they are probably not going to be the audience that is sitting here at GeekCon, tell us a little bit about what MSP GeekCon and what it means to you and why you're here.
Well, I actually came to the first one. This is going to be a long answer. Sorry.
Oh, that's great. We got 30 minutes.
I actually came to the first one because I had met somebody at IT Nation. I'd met Elle at IT Nation. She sat down at my table randomly at lunch and we struck up a conversation, and she was part of the planning of the first one. And she's like, you should really come to this. I think you'd enjoy it. We had meshed on a few different topics. And so when I saw that the mandate was to take from tier 1 to tier 3 and how to help doing that, this is a bit of a question mark that we always had internally about how do you actually do that. And I was like, okay, let me check it out. I brought 2 of my technicians with me, and I didn't really know who anybody was. Sat down on like the first night and watched an incredible game of Catan. And there
were some good games of that last night too.
I saw that. I wasn't in the room for that because I was playing D&D. Go Dan Myers. But the whole thing that struck me was just like, there's these people who were, I had no idea who they were, but they were obviously very knowledgeable because when they were talking, you could tell that they knew their stuff. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And then I remember being in the bar at like 2:00 in the morning, which is where all the good conversations
That's where the best conversations happen. Pro tip.
And I was talking to another really prominent MSP, and he was sharing basically his entire P&L statement and exactly how they'd broken things down. And I was like, man, like this community is incredibly open about everything. And when you're running a business on your own, it can be really hard sometimes to know if you're doing the right thing. There's plenty of operating systems out there, whatever, but like those people don't actually run the same kind of business. So you talking to people who do the same thing that you do is incredibly valuable. And once I'd gone and made friends with people, then participating in the Discord became like a foregone conclusion. It was like I wanted to see all my friends. It felt like summer camp. And then I was like, how do I keep in touch with them? These are the postcards between them, right? And so I think I probably posted an inappropriate amount of messages in the next year. But within 6 months, I was asked to join the board. Now, I did step down from the board last year, but I have a role basically doing anything where we're doing events, whatever. I'm part of the planning committee for this particular one as well. And the community means a lot to me because a lot of my own personal growth within this community has come from being able to tap somebody and say, hey, how does this work? How do you do this? How do you achieve this? I am a chief operating officer in my MSP before full time before I left to work at Auvik. And a good portion of what I do is not necessarily technical, right? So it's all about systems and processes. And you can observe those things, but doing the actual technical work is something where you need to be able to talk to people who do that. Now, the people who work for me, they're wonderful people, but they're also going to give me an answer that is based on what they want to do. That's human nature, to be able to talk to someone else and say, okay, but this is what I was told was possible or not possible. And they're like, well, actually, here's more detail. And so it allowed me to hold my team accountable. Like, there's so many good things for me. And then I started to get tapped for, hey, I have people who aren't conforming to this process, or I have a personnel issue. And these were my strengths. And it really made me understood the power of community itself. This is an ecosystem where we're all interdependent on each other. Now I understand the role of vendors, I understand the role of the technician and the owner, and it's a full wraparound system, to use the word I used before, but and I have a little bit more respect and insight for having gone through now for 4 years in, but in the beginning, it was something that I caught on to right away. And it has been an incredibly powerful support through some really deeply big changes in my life. And I would say whatever community you belong to, community is important, period. I also belong to GTIA. Like there's just many different ones that I belong to, and they all serve a different purpose. This one particularly, I feel like these are the people who are in the weeds every single day in technology. And if you want to understand where we're going, this is a place to find that answer.
That is a fantastic answer. One of my good friends that I met here in the space uses the term collaboration.
I love it.
And it is what I feel here. And it's unique because you talked about how your introduction to GeekCon was at IT Nation. I'm a big fan of IT Nation and the community events there. It's often operators and executors at the top level. Then you talked about how it's the people in the trenches here. And that is why I love it.
Yeah.
Having been a tier 1 technologist myself, or technician, I think I said it wrong up there too, but it's been a long day and a long week. But being a tier 1 tech, I can empathize with the constant hair on fire, the constant challenges. And those are the people that are actually keeping the business afloat. In a lot of cases, they're the true superheroes of the organization. So it feels good to be able to sit here and talk with them and hear from them and, talk about this community with them. And GeekCon is one of the only, I think it is probably the only community that is designed for this tier 1, as far as bringing people together in a conference format.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, I think there's some that focus more on security that kind of have a duality in terms of whatever. Yeah, but I think it is quite unique in, we want your green text. We wanna help that journey from beginning to end. I also think it's a bit unique because it has more engineers involved in it, or people that are in the day-to-day technology. You will find people who have broken so much stuff. But these are the same people that when you look at the products in the space, they're named accredited for having built them. So this is to your talk this morning, this is a very curious and inquisitive crowd that are like, can I pet that dog? Like, can I do it? And if I can't, why can't I? And what could I change to make that happen? I may not be as technical as anybody here, but that is how my brain works. It just works towards processes. So I think, it's less about the fact that it's technology. It's more about your ethos and your curiosity and problem solving. If you have problem solving at all, this is the community that you find that in.
I love it. Now,
and that's unique.
It is. It is very unique about problem solving. It was kind of fun to bring the juxtaposition between efficient problem solving and curious problem solving on the keynote, which I'm a victim of. Everybody's a victim of. That's why it's so relatable. But that is one of those reasons we're here in this community, is to share what our learnings are. And today's talk, we're going to have about 15-20 minutes, so we'll keep it tight. But it's going to be about community. And you said a second ago, you said a sense of community helped you through some tough times and some tough years. Talk to me, talk to me, but to the people in the audience as well, for people that are running and operating MSPs, but aren't plugged into a GTIA or an MSPGeekCon, or they've never done a show even for the very first time. What do you find is the power of a conference like this? And what do you walk out with that makes you think or operate differently?
You know, it's really difficult to answer, but not because of the what you think. It's because I have many answers and none of them touch the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. Even in my role at Auvik, it's very true that when I come to a conference like this, my output is not a specific one defined KPI. It's a slideshow of many things, and that's how we've had to start quantifying it. But as an MSP, I'll give an example that's really, it's a highlight. So the more that you go out to conferences or go out to events, you're going to be able to interface with the people that you rely on to create products that you bring out to your client and put your name attached to, right? Invariably, no matter what we use, especially stuff like EDRs or MDRs, we're putting our names on something that, you know, we don't necessarily have control over, and that's a little bit scary. The only way that you can have any kind of control or anything at all is to be able to go to that vendor and make a partnership with them, give them feedback, test how much they listen to you, and you get access to do that here, right? So for me, when I went to the second GeekCon, I brought two of my higher level engineers, and they sat down with the people from Huntress and they said, listen, we love your product, but the problem that we run into is that we're the only ones who are able to run any kind of anything because we don't trust the younger technicians to do it because we can't train them until something happens. When something happens, the world's on fire.
Yeah.
And so we can do an incident response, but it's not inside your product. So when we're talking about product knowledge, we want to be able to create that hair on fire situation, but in a safe, tested, whatever. And within, I think, 3 weeks, Huntress had us built out incident response practice within their actual platform. So like people could train on that specifically. I like, would we have gotten that if we'd sent an email? Like, I just think because they know who we were, we built relationships, we went and talked to them at the booth. We give them information. Like, this is the nature of the reciprocity that exists in this channel. That is community, period. As an MSP, when you engage with that, we win because now we have people who are better trained for IR, but they also feel invested in the process of learning it or adhering to it because, hey, those guys did what I listened to. As humans, we have an inherent need to belong or to be seen. And that's what you're doing when you engage with them. You're seeing the vendor as a human, engaging with what they do. And in the return, you then get somebody who goes, oh, wait, I'm going to listen to you. And when they do, you feel this, by transitive properties, you feel this affinity for them that it's nothing to do with money.
Yeah.
It's purely based on how our brains work. And it's really hard to fight that.
It is. You use the word partnership.
Yeah.
And I don't know many industries that probably consider their SaaS vendors partners. But we are in a unique industry here. And I think, you know, it's been interesting. I met MSPs, many MSPs over my lifetime. And I'm always surprised by the ones that don't come out to these events. And when I've poked that thread a little bit further or pulled that thread a little bit further, it often leans into time. That's always the first reason. I don't have time
100%.
for all that. What would you say?
I understand that asking someone to leave their business, which is the thing that generates the money, to spend money to go somewhere else on an unknown is an incredible ask. I think if you don't do, like some of us do, multiple events throughout the year, I think that you still try one.
Yeah.
Find the lowest, whatever, and find out what ROI you come into it. My piece of advice, though, don't just go to sessions. Meet people, make friends, talk to the vendors to make sure, not because you want to buy something, because you want to understand what they do and you want to understand what's happening in the market to know what your competitors might be doing, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, just try one and then find out how that feels. Pick something local, pick something small, and then from there you'll be able to see what the benefit is. It's the same old argument that we have in MSP, period. If you want to relate it back to how an MSP works, if all you're doing is doing reactive support the entire time, then you're not an MSP. I'm sorry, but you're not, because all you're basically just putting into a contract that you're going to do break fix work. And what makes an MSP truly that title is somebody who's proactive, looking for what's out there, looking for what the problems are, and trying to get ahead of them so they can reduce the noise, not only for themselves, but for their clients. This is exactly what you do when you go to a conference. You are reducing the noise in terms of what it is you're trying to get done in your business and what the answers are to solve what the problems are in front of you. So I would stand on a hill and say it's valuable. Do you need to go to 17 a year? Absolutely not.
I don't know how the ones that do it, to be honest.
Yeah, Henry was like 45, and I'm like, no, I can't do that.
I am impressed with those numbers. Those are very impressive numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, so time.
Yes.
That's often the first one. I use the word collaboration.
Yeah.
Talk me through that. The MSP that's sitting in there and going, well, you know, I don't want to share my peers what I'm doing. I don't want them to understand my best practice, like that fear.
You know, it's really funny because you get to choose who you talk to at a
Yeah.
conference. And so every single one of us, I don't have my badge on me right now, says our business name and where we're located. So if you see someone in your general location, maybe don't share all your information.
Yeah.
But if you see someone that's completely like, maybe everybody, some people serve globally, whatever, but on that macro level,
Yeah.
you're not worried about it the same way. But if you're a smaller MSP, you're juggling your time, you're juggling whatever, and you're thinking about it, just don't necessarily share that with the people that are in the same whatever as you. But I'll tell you right now, half the time in my MSP when we're about to lose a client, it's because I know about it, because not just because of what we're paying attention to, but also because the competitors in the area will call us up and say, hey, just so you know, they're shopping around.
Yeah.
Being friends with the people who are in your industry is not a bad thing. You don't have to give them everything. You don't have to tell them everything, but you can have respect for each other because you're both trying to run a business, right? Like you're both trying to achieve the same goal, and it's way better if you're rowing in the same direction. You know, when we bought one of our competitors in the area, they were calling themselves a managed service provider, but charging like $25 an endpoint. And when we bought them, one of our competitors called us and said, thank you. You just did us like the biggest service, because that person was being compared to everybody else. And it was obviously not a sustainable model, right? So like when you have those open lines, you'd be surprised at how much information comes from that, that's still respectful of the fact that you want to be protecting what you're doing. But there's enough room for most people, to be honest with you. And if there isn't, then just go buy the person next to you.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, so in the theme of community, we now have reason. We have anti-reasons. So if you think it's about the competition or you're worried about time, you've provided some good guidance there. There's a couple like core reasons. What are we've been here at GeekCon now maybe 24 hours, something like that. We're nearing 24 hours. What have you learned out here? What are some key takeaways today? And then what are you excited about for the rest of the GeekCon?
The takeaways always take me some time to reflect.
Yeah, fair.
Right. I feel like every time I interact with somebody in this space, I might not necessarily hear something new, but I hear something that I need to hear right now in the context of what I need to hear right now. And even if it's something that I know, it's still validating to have somebody echo what you're saying. Being a business owner, being in a small business can be a bit like a silo, and you can feel quite lonely, not just from the perspective of, do I know what to do, but does anybody really understand what I'm going through, right? And I know we made the joke a few times that MSP Geek, specifically the Discord, the community, is a bit like therapy, because people will come in and go, oh, blah, 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 and talk about, and I won't say what it is, because this goes on, whatever, but they'll complain about end users, they'll complain about whatever, and they're not doing it because they actually want to vilify those people. But sometimes we all, there's a term, a therapy term, which is like we all have pools, right? They have water in them, and when we are too overwhelmed, the water is like at the brink and it splashes everywhere, and it leads to all this, emotional dysregulation, which then shows up in our work. But coming and being able to talk to people, being able to get through those things, I know that's not the takeaway that you're probably looking for. It's probably something more profound, but for me, it is the ability to sit across from someone and, have that moment where we're both on the same page, and I go, I'm not alone. And it takes a bucket of the water out of my pool, and it helps. And then on top of that, I really love teaching. So when I come to something like this, at this point in my career, I've had so many people that have helped me. So being able to give back to something and being able to sit across from someone and be like, no, when you think of it, you have to consider this. It changes for me. Like when I come to these, that's the takeaways I always get.
Yeah, I a lot of really good takeaways there. One thing that specifically resonated with me is context and time.
Yeah.
I agree with you. There's been so many times that I've heard the same talk maybe 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
But then I come into it with a different lens.
Yeah.
And it hits differently. And so for people that are thinking, oh, I went to GeekCon last year, I don't need to go this year.
Yeah.
There's about a million reasons. But that's one of the core reasons. It's like, it's not about what does it take 7 times to reinforce a fact in somebody's brain. It's not about new content in many cases. Sometimes it's just about reinforcing the basics. And I know you have some thoughts on that.
I do. And I'm going to say my thoughts, but I'm going to say something too, of another community I belong to, Robin Robbins, when being a part of technology marketing toolkit. Sorry, it's a mouthful. She's really good at getting up on stage and having all these materials that are the exact same thing. And she'll tell you they're the exact same things, but she'll be like, I need to kick your ass. And I also need to remind you, because you drift, you get focused on what you're doing. And that repetition is the same thing that athletes do. Athletes train all the time. You think that, if Michael Jordan does a 3-pointer, 100 times, he's got it, right? No, he does that so his muscle memory is there. You're building the habits to make sure that you can just do it. So when you come back to a conference and you think that maybe you've already heard these things before, what you're actually doing is you're just building your muscle memory, and you're just reinforcing what it is that you're doing. And honestly, that's the point of being a constant learner, constantly curious. I loved your talk this morning, you can't tell. And I think that's important to remember, is because that's a muscle that you're using. That is your brain is a muscle. And much like an athlete, since our trade is services and how we problem solve, we need to exercise that muscle.
Yeah.
I don't even remember what your original question was, but I went off on that tangent. But I think there was something else more that I wanted to talk about too.
I asked, and I'll leave it here because it's a perfect segue. What I had said is, first I said, why this industry, you gave that, or sorry, not that, but I led you into like one of the soft things. And you said you had when we got off the keynote, you came up to me and you goes, I want to talk about that on our podcast.
Well, I mean, it kind of plays into what I was talking about, but we talk about with AI, right? Everybody wants to talk about what's next. They want to move forward at lightning speed because they're worried about falling behind. But, you can have a fast built train, but if the tracks that the train is on are shaky, then that speed is just going to send it off the rails, right? You need to make sure your foundation is correct. You need to make sure you have your stuff in order. For me, I talk to a lot of people and I'm like, oh, let's talk about numbers and metrics and what's your documentation like? And they're like, oh, we got that. I'm like, do you? Can you tell me how you know?
Yeah.
Oh, we did a project like 3 years ago. Oh, nothing's changed since then? Well, yeah, but like people updated. I'm like, do you know? And they're like, well, yeah, I'm sure they did, right? But if you don't know, and they're like, well, that's micromanaging. I'm like, no, it's not.
It's fundamentals.
Like you need the fundamentals to be there, because if you're going to slap AI on something, all you're going to do is exponentially scale something that's not built soundly.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's important to make sure that you have those things. And I don't think of just documentation. I think also of our skills. To the point of your talk, it was like something I've been saying for a while. Like, my child got busted when he was in grade 7 in a summer program using AI to do what it is he's doing. He's incredibly smart. And he was like, yeah, like, I don't understand why they need me to do this thing from the beginning. I'm like, because writing an essay is a thought, and it's a thought process. You have to be able to form your thoughts. So if you wanted to use AI, that's one thing. But you can't just say, hey, AI, write me an essay that's 1,500 words on this particular topic with maybe these 3 points, right? You can turn around and you can ask it, what would you think if I said this? And you can use all the data that it comes from with that. And then you can write something, and then you can ask it to question you and poke holes in it. And I said, you need to be able to use AI in a way where it's encouraging you to be curious about what it's saying, to fact check what it's saying. I'm not opposed to him using it. I want him to use it with his own ideas. So you need to write much longer about what it is you think. I don't care if it's misspelled, but you need to put it in there so that it's you in what you're talking about. And I think a lot of times people are just very prescriptive, where they just ask it to do something. Go, oh yeah, that sounds all right.
Yeah.
Let's just do that. Right. But really, it's the starter of what you're doing. And then you need to be able to build and put your own voice, or put your own voice at the beginning so that it's incredibly fine tuned. And I think, this danger of atrophy is something that worries me, especially when we start talking about tool sets. I hear I'm just going to AI and automate my tier 1.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And this,
I'll be trending the mental all over here.
Can I swear?
I don't care. LinkedIn hasn't banned me yet.
This scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. And it's across every industry right now. I get really worried about this. Do you think that you're going to allow a technician to come into your organization brand new and work tier 2 level tickets? Absolutely not. Mandy talked about it on the stage the other night. You get into a very basic position to begin with, and you prove that you can do those things. You build your muscle memory for doing the repetitive task, and show that you can follow a process. It isn't just that you are doing backup checks. You are showing that you can do A, B, C, and D, right?
Yep.
I am not going to let somebody in and let them have admin rights to things. Like, that's not a thing that's going to happen. So what are those people going to do in order to practice those skills to be able to move up into the next level?
Yeah, that is an interesting trend. We've talked. I've had a couple sidebar conversations. I'm going to go back with your Michael Jordan analogy. The tier 1's kind of being that layup, the tier 2's being your free throws, and the tier 3's being your 3-pointers.
Yeah.
Like, you have to be able to get to the fundamentals before you move into the next framing of things. And there was a sidebar conversation. I'd be curious to get your talk on it, and then we'll start to move towards the wrap up. Where I talked to somebody, and their fear of how we're going to build the next generation of tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 talent when we're looking at using a tool like AI to automate tier 1.
Yeah.
How are we building that roster, and how are we building that business that isn't just going to grow immediately now and then find ourselves with the empty hands and
that's
2
what I'm
years.
worried about. I'm worried about the next generation. And for me, even within our own approach internally in AI, I mean, like let's be real. Everything that exists has already happened before,
Yeah.
right? And so we've already seen this in the technical sector. You look at networking specifically, and you have a loss of networking skill because people moved from on-prem to cloud everything.
And they all
and so
took all the talent with it. Yeah.
what happened was, you could send out a junior technician to run some cable. Not that everybody would, but they could do certain things, and you would learn certain rules in order to do those things. And then we lost that, right? So like we had a technician at one point that couldn't figure out what was going on with the network, and physically went out to look at it, and was like, I don't know what's going on, why it's having all these issues. The cable that was run, or the whatever you want to call it, between the two was like 500 feet long, and didn't understand.
Yeah.
What is it, like 300? Like there's like a limit, right? So like
Depending on the Ethernet, yeah.
yeah, and he was like, he didn't understand. So we obviously changed things
Yeah,
around, but the point being that the simple thing. It's the simple things that will get lost, which is why I'm going to keep hammering on the foundations. I don't care if they're not sexy.
Yeah.
They're necessary. Whatever we're going to do, we have to speak to that. This also speaks to higher education. I was reading something the other day that was saying that most people going through university right now are just chat GPTing their way through it as well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, then what's the point? Because if that's how they're going to find the answers, they're not really learning how to critically think.
Yeah.
Let's stop teaching to, let's say, computer science. Let's teach to how do you problem solve?
Yeah.
Because these are the skills that will become the most necessary. And anybody who asks me, what should I send my kid to school for? Something to do with business, because it will be problem solving.
Yeah, I like it. I think that it's super applicable. I worry myself too, as a business owner. I look at junior roles and I have to make that position of, do I hire a junior planning for 2 to 3 years from now, or do I hire a senior and know that I can automate some of the junior tasks? It's a tough challenge out there. And I think, businesses, I try to use this framing in a lot of ways of thinking. AI gives you the ability to think in days, but you have to plan for decades.
Yeah.
And so it's a really tough challenge. And not that I have an answer to it. I think we're all figuring that one out.
An idea.
Yeah.
And for me, it has been, the way that we set up our service desk, and the way that I consider people's roles. And maybe for your example, when you think about a junior technician, you need to think about what's different about this generation, right? Especially if you're hiring somebody new for this position. What skill set do they have that our generation and the generation before doesn't have? Now, and I'm not saying that it's clear, but let's use an example. If you hired a tier 1 technician that also was really good at making TikToks, but then could do that and be part of marketing, then this generation is very like two things at once ADHD anyway, right? So they're used to switching and context switching in ways that our generation is not. So we need to reconceptualize that roles maybe aren't as defined and niche as they are before, and allow for some latitude for people. This is just a hypothesis.
But I love it, because I think what you're saying is, the way I'm consuming it is, let's go back to my junior engineer scenario.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be looking at that junior engineer role and say, I expect them to produce scaffolding code. I should be looking at that and go, what is the next generation engineer going to bring that's not scaffolding code?
Yeah.
What's that value going to bring to the table? Instead of thinking of the problem you expect them to solve, think of the tangential benefits that next generation can bring to the team.
That was a very nice extrapolation from what I said, but yes.
I mean, that is my job as a host, is to be listening and to try to get to the outcome.
It's also about diversification.
Yeah, right?
Like, how can you, not just where you're going, but how can you make sure that you maximize both from their interest point of view, but also from their time.
I love it. I think that's a good segment to switch into one question I was curious about when we started. You have been at GeekCon now as both an MSP and now as a vendor.
Yeah, and a planner.
And a planner and a contributor and a speaker. You've been in many roles.
Yeah.
If you give me the vendor lens, because I often hear from some community vendors out there that there's not much of, it's a new conference or it's a smaller conference. Like, why should they be here?
I don't think they should be here unless they understand what it means to be here. And maybe that's a controversial thing to say.
I like that, but
I don't love when vendors come and they just expect to get ROI from the vendor hall. That's the wrong measurement. John, as you all know, the after hours events, the hallway conversations, making friends with people. And these are the ways that you maximize as a vendor. And it's not necessarily something you can put in a KPI report.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you this, the things that I learn after hours as a vendor, not just, from the perspective of what's happening in the industry, but what cool things people are doing. What have they tried? What are our customers doing with our product that maybe we don't know about? That, after a few drinks upstairs, when you're talking about whatever, they'll like just tell you, oh yeah, we did blah, 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 blah. Like the insight that you get about what your product could do, where it could go, what people are already doing with it, and how it brings value to their business. Every person buys in this industry better when they understand what someone else is doing, because we're all looking for the cheat code. We're looking for a blueprint.
Yeah.
So the value to me is really in being in the room for that and being a part of this ecosystem that shares. There's a lot of co-marketing, cross-marketing, sharing of like integrations and things that happen. That happens in rooms like these, right?
I love it.
But you can't come here, go, oh, did I get 100 scans and that's the leader of my success? Like it has to be more than that.
It's kind of back to that junior point. You have to look past what your expectations are and look for the additional benefits, because this GeekCon is not like any other conference.
It's not.
And you have to know that coming in, and you have to look for those values. I often say, you get direct product feedback from the users is an incredibly high value asset.
Yeah.
You get direct access to raving fans.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of tangentials to it. Go ahead, and then I have one last.
Look at ConnectWise. If you look at ConnectWise's product, when you load it up, it says like, thank you to our contributors. And these are people that weren't paid, that use the product, who got in a room with the person who was a CEO and said, this part's broken. Here's how I think you could fix it.
Yeah.
Here's actually some code that might do it. And now, they're recognizing that. And I know that doesn't sound like, the problem is a lot of people misunderstand the spot that MSP, and I'm sorry, John, we might go over time here, but the spot that MSP holds in the ecosystem. MSPs are mavericks by nature. They want to figure things out. They will find your edge cases. They will burn your product to the edges. And when they do that, it makes your product more sound, so that when you want to go to enterprise, when you want to go and scale, you're going to scale with a better product. You're going to get better ideas from that general pool, because they're creative by nature, right? So if you understand what tapping into this market means, then a conference like this that puts you in the same room as the engineers is a no-brainer.
I love that. You mentioned time. I want to be respectful. I want to also get you to lunch, and we got lunch here in 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah.
So I'll ask one last question. It's the last question I ask on every episode across everything.
Okay.
What did you expect me to ask today that I didn't?
I know this is not what you're going to want to hear, because it isn't an answer, but I try not to go in with any expectations. It's really funny because some of my best friends in my life actually call me ChatGPT, because I do better when you just give me things and then I can expand in a moment and think about it. But if I have to prepare ahead of time, I don't do the best.
Here.
I would rather just think on my feet. So I actually try not to think about it at all.
I like it. That's how I felt in the keynote. I didn't practice at all. I'm just kind of glad it all worked out. I feel like it worked out.
It did. No, I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Well, look, we got 2 more days of GeekCon.
Yeah.
Give me the top 3 things you're looking forward to, and then we'll sign off.
So I'm really excited for the community tables. Community tables were something I kind of pushed for last year. It's a thing with a conference like this is it can be really daunting when you come in for the first time to know who you can talk to. So this year we added the pre-day, which was great for newbies. But the community tables were an idea of, let's have a conversation about a topic, right? Topic is set up ahead of time, and you are told that you have permission to sit at that table, right? So when you look around this vendor hall, as we're staring at the vendor hall right now, there's these tables, and you might see a group of 5 people, and you always feel like you have to ask permission to sit down.
Yeah.
And it can be quite daunting for people who have social anxiety. Community tables are a way to say, no, you don't have to ask permission. You're just welcome to sit down. And that's vendor, MSP, technician, whatever, right? I love them because to me, they're the best part of community that shows up in action. There was one last year where someone was actually like on the edge of tears, and the entire table rallied around them and like worked them through a problem with them. And that's to me, like I said, community in action. I am dying to see the speaker roulette.
That'd be fun.
I can't wait for speaker roulette.
Then one more thing.
I know I'm considering it really heavily.
There's a lot of things.
I know, that's the problem. I mean, I'm going to go back to the booth when I'm done this and take a fantastic photo with all the rest of my Auvik crew that's in this. That's something I'm looking forward to. I feel like I know I'll have lots more conversations with people that I know and love. So I'll put that as my third.
Well, here's to the conversations. Thanks for joining me in a corner in the hall here at GeekCon. We kept it tight to 35 minutes, which is pretty impressive because normal coffee chats go on, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time. Thank you so much for coming here.
Thanks,
and if people want to reach out to you, why should they reach out to you and how can they get hold of you?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Amanda Doucette Lashfeld. I think I've got my full name or just Amanda Lashfeld. But also you can look up Frankly IT newsletter, which is the newsletter I write for Auvik. I'm very privileged to work for a company that doesn't ask me to necessarily sell their product. They just want me to teach people to be better. And by doing so, they know that they'll need our product, which is a nice version of the ecosystem that I want to be a part of. So, but things like Frankly IT, where I give purely educational content or webinars, and it's something that I really enjoy. So please come watch it, engage with it so that I can keep a job.
I love it. Amanda, thank you so much for coming here. I see the vendor hall doors are open and we are on with the show.
Thank
for
you.
everybody that joined or seeing this after, thanks for joining. Cheers.